Well, hi there. Welcome back to our video blog. We're glad you're here. We're always blessed to have some of the best church leaders on the planet. And today we've got one that was just on the other side of the planet. Perry Noble just got back from Israel, and his book has come out. It's called Overwhelmed. It's already out. You need to go find it. Right underneath me, there should be a link to the Amazon spot where you can find it. It is one of the most powerful books I've seen from a pastor around lately. And the reason I find it to be powerful is Perry's just very vulnerable, very courageous in this book about his own struggles. And rather than try and describe it myself, Perry, would you mind taking a few minutes, just kind of tell us how this book came about and what you want to try and accomplish through it?
Yeah. First of all, thanks so much. It's an incredible opportunity to be able to do this. And, you know, the book really came out of my pain. Several years ago, I began a battle with anxiety, worry, and depression that eventually led to suicidal thoughts. And it was a deep, deep hole. When you're considering taking your own life, that's not where God wants you to be. And around 16% of Christians have at one point seriously contemplated doing this. And so once again, it's, and I explain all this in the book, but it's a process to get there. You just don't wake up one day and go, hey, I think I want to end it all. I mean, it's a process. And so I kind of described that. And then how I got out of that mess, how I kind of began to deal with things, how I began to make some changes, how I began to get out of it. And so after I went through that process, I said, hey, you know what? I wonder if anybody else would even be interested in this kind of story. And so we did a series about 2 or 3 years ago in our church, and we called it Overwhelmed. And I talked about stress and anxiety and fear and worry and even suicide. And the response we got was overwhelming. I mean, the prayer rooms and the care rooms were absolutely packed out every single Sunday. And so I thought, man, this is something that I think the world needs to hear, but not a lot of people are talking about. And so after kind of thinking about that, praying about that for a while, that's when I decided to write the book on it.
That's awesome, man. Hey, tell me, I'm guessing with all the pastors that tune in for our video blog, there are probably a couple of them sitting there thinking, yeah, well, that's great if that was before you were a pastor, but this is real-time stuff, right? This is not, well, before I became a Christian, I got depressed, and then after I became a Christian, it all went away.
No, in fact, man, I was, if you're looking from the outside in, when I really began to battle this was December 2007. And if you're looking at my life from as an outsider, everything was going right. I mean, the numbers are going up and to the right. We're hiring more staff. We're making budget. We had just had a little baby girl. She was healthy. Like everything was going right. But it's like Bill Hybels said years ago, the rate at which I was doing the work of God was destroying the work of God in me. And it was one of those processes where I had to be humbled. I had to learn some things. And looking back on it, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but it's one of the greatest things I've ever gone through because of what I feel like the Lord taught me during that time.
Wow. Wow. And so if you were a young pastor on that front end, we got a lot of church planters that are loading and unloading every week, and they're starting to see some traction. Air's starting to get a little thin. Don't really feel like they got anybody to talk to. What if you could go back, knowing what you know now, and redo 2006, 2007, and such? What would you have done differently? So if somebody's on the front end of this, what should they be doing differently?
I think there's a couple things that pop out in my mind. The first thing, looking back, is I really do believe the pace of your life will set the place in your life. I don't just say that to have a cool phrase that rhymes. The pace that we set in our lives now will lead to the place that we're going to be in our lives later. So if we're trying to go Mach 2 with our hair on fire, if you go out, if you take a car and if you put it in first gear and redline it, eventually that engine is going to blow up. And we know that's stupid for a car, but we think somehow that as human beings we can do that too. So I think that's the first thing I would tell a young leader. The second thing I would tell a young leader is make out a list of priorities. And when I say priorities, not what other people's priorities are for you, but what really are your priorities. Set them in line, and then live your life according to, hey, man, I'm going to be a follower of Jesus. I'm going to be a husband. I'm going to be a father, and then I'm going to be a leader. And if you'll put those priorities in line, I'm telling you, it sounds and from where I'm sitting, people go, oh, my gosh, well, that's easy for you. You know, you got a church and you got a staff. But it's something I didn't do when I was when our church was young, and I paid the price for it. So I'm reminded of my daughter this past Saturday morning. I went up and woke her up, and she read she said, I want to read you a story, Daddy. And I was like, okay, you know, and she read the story. And the story she chose was The Tortoise and the Hare. And the last line in the story, The Tortoise and the Hare, is slow and steady wins the race. Mm-hmm. I remember hearing Dave Ramsey do an entire talk on that. Slow and steady wins the race. And so many times as young pastors or church planners, we think we got to go out and kind of set the world on fire. But slow and steady wins the race. And our pace in life establishes our place in life.
That is so good. I'm in a learning group with a bunch of high growth small business owners, because we've had a nice little run here the last few years, and they're showing us a study that the government is doing, the Institute for Sustainable Growth, and what they found that's rather staggering is if you can show growth 5 consecutive years as a company, then you are in the top 1% of all businesses in the country. And it doesn't matter how much growth. It can be 1%. But then the scary thing is, they said the faster you're growing, the more likely you are to completely fail. Mm. And I think that's what I'm hearing you say about your personal life. The faster you're trying to get it all done, the more likely you are it's just going to fall apart one day. Yeah, because you can't. I mean, it's you're juggling. You're spinning plates, and eventually, you can only carry so much weight. It's kind of like laying down on a bench press. Some people, you put 225 pounds on the bench, and they're gonna throw it up 10 times and it's gonna be fine. Other people, you're gonna put 225 and it's gonna crush them. So you got to figure out what your pace is in life. And hey, there are people. I used to feel like I had to keep up with everybody. Like you see all these guys and they're full of energy. Like one of the guys I love to watch is Bob Goff. That guy's got more energy in his pinky than I've got. But you know what? Not everybody can keep up with him. Not everybody can keep up with certain leaders. You've got to establish the pace that God has for you in your life. And that's one of the ways to keep from being overwhelmed. Well, and I know I never found that pace until I had someone above me helping me find that pace. Somebody that you can actually talk to and not worry about what they're going to think about your church or your ministry. So, yeah. Hey, Perry, so one of the big things we do in our work, besides helping churches find staff, is kind of consult with them about their team. So I'm guessing there's some pastors out there who have some staff members who are showing some warning signs of burning out, or some of these depression or anxiety or stress or even suicidal thoughts. What would be some of the signs you would look for if you were a supervisor to just say, hey, maybe we need to talk about this? And then secondly, what would you do to either prevent that or to help them out? Well, there are several signs. The first sign is when you begin to see a lack of compassion on their part. So, and because at the end of the day, the toughest thing about ministry is people. Mm-hmm. But the reason we're in ministry is because of people. People matter to God. They should matter to us. I mean, I'm reminded of Matthew chapter 14 when Jesus found out that John the Baptist, his cousin, had his head cut off, and he tries to go away and get to a solitary place, and all the people run ahead of him. And the Bible says when Jesus got out of the boat, he had compassion on those people. Now, I remember reading that one day going, I wouldn't have had compassion. I'd have been like, get these people out of here. I'm just trying to get some time. And so when our compassion level for people begins to consistently decrease, and we see that in other staff members, we need to address that. The second thing you look for is when people isolate themselves. Solitude is godly. Isolation is destructive. And there's a difference between somebody going away to, for a day or a half a day to kind of pray or read their journal, whatever. But when somebody's always isolating themselves, that's a problem. The third thing to look for
is when people are always, they always blame other people and circumstances for all their problems. Because, and what I learned, this is what I did, I blamed my wife, the birth of my daughter, the growth of the church, staff members. I would blame them, because if we blame other people, then we don't have to deal with the junk in our own lives. It's everybody else's fault. And if they'll just clean it up, we'll be okay. And so those are just 3 of the warning signs that we can look for. And then when we see them, as their pastor, as their leader, as their friend, it's our job to try to find them the best help possible. I went to professional counseling, and I used to think people that went to counselors were wimps, but now people that go to counselors, I believe, are brilliant and smart, because good gosh, man, people in ministry, we don't deal with normal stuff. Nobody called me today to say, hey, man, just want to let you know I'm loving my wife like Christ loves the church, and our kids are healthy and everything's awesome. You know this. You've done ministry. When your phone rings, somebody's life is falling apart.
That's right.
We don't get to have normal conversations. I'll take my daughter to the Waffle House and I'll see somebody. Hey, man, how are you doing, Bob? Pastor, I've been smoking crack. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, got to explain that one to my daughter, and that's not normal, So we don't live in a normal. So it's real good for us to have a counselor that we can kind of go to and bounce things off of.
That's awesome, man. The book, again, is Overwhelmed, and we've got the websites running underneath us, and I'd encourage you to just go ahead and set up an RSS feed to perrynoble.com. A lot of great content for pastors out there, a lot for team members, and I think God's going to really bless you through his ministry. I know, Perry, God is using you, and the courage you've shown in doing this book is going to help a whole lot of people. Thanks for being willing to take time with us, man, and God bless you and your ministry.
Thank you so much, man. This has been an incredible honor. You guys keep up the good work.
Thanks, man.